Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us another episode of Fit Drivers podcast, brought to you, of course, by 10th Street. And we've really got a really exciting guest for you to hear from today. As you know, our podcasts are about driver health solutions and education, information on how we can help these men and women live better out there on the road, make better choices, and so forth. And so today we have with us, you're going to hear from Bobbi Horne. Bobbi serves as the president of LiveMax LLC and chief science officer at LiveMax Health Sciences. And Bobbi's going to share some great information with us today when she talks about it. But Bobbi, background, we got very lucky to meet. And once we started having conversations, got to really hear more about her background. But she not only is, the leading chief science officer and so forth, but she also has over 50 years in business development and administration within the healthcare industry. Certified health coach, DNA practitioner, cardiovascular consultant, helping physicians to measure, identify early stages of cardiovascular disease. So you're going to hear from a real expert today. I'm really feel privileged to have you on. Bobbi, thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bob. It's a pleasure to be with you, and hope we can share some information that's going to make a difference in people's lives.
I think we will, no doubt. So the first thing I want to do is take a few moments and tell the listeners about LiveMax. And also, when I read your information, I was inspired also too about a family loss that really did inspire you to focus on your career in science-based solutions that are both safe and effective.
Well, the one thing that I didn't put on my bio was that I did clinical research, and I opened a clinical research business. And that's part of the reason why this is so important to me. Now, LiveMax is a company that is based on science and solutions that actually work for everyday people. And I'm so proud to actually work with them and to work with a compound that we're going to talk about today called ribosine. My life-changing event happened when my dad passed away. Now, he was 71 years old, and I have now surpassed his age by several years. But when he passed away, I realized how little control he had over his health. He was at the mercy of medical providers and really felt pretty helpless. He didn't feel empowered. And that was the one thing I wanted to bring to the table, was to make people feel empowered, that they actually could have some solutions that they could employ that were safe and that were actually effective. Not a lot of the junk that you might see out in the marketplace.
Right.
And that was what I was determined to find.
Interesting. Well, that's great. My last month's episode was with a really good friend of mine for about 40 years, Scott Forsberg, and he's a recognized professional and speaker nationally, internationally as well, on vitamins and supplements. He has about 10, and I think we talked about him. He has about 10 patents, and so same thing with him, scientific based. And so, but his mission, much like yours, is he developed a lot of these supplements and programs to help empower people to take control. One of the things that Scott and I talked about was that I've always told the drivers that, you have access to the most responsible and cost-effective lab there is, and it's your own body, right? And what works for you may not work for somebody else, and vice versa. And you got to spend some time doing that. And you don't have to there's so much information out there now with social media, right? And everybody's got the magic pills, ointment, whatever it is, right, that's going to do this for you. And people get confused very easily, and there's too much information. So that's why I'm really looking forward to you sharing with us today your experience in what the science information has brought you. And the other thing, folks, I want you to know that what I enjoy about talking with Bobbi is even though, she's hold all these great degrees in science and medical and so forth, but Bobbi's really very good at keeping it, in layman terms so we all can digest it and understand it, right? Because it doesn't do any good to talk about a lot of these things if you really can't understand it. So, Bobbi, let's dive in. Let's talk about the technology that's important and impact cellular health, and where your research led you to all this information, including the energy drinks, which we really want to get into because we know that that's a go-to source for our drivers out there.
Exactly. And, you know, it was so interesting. Back in 2009, I had just closed my clinical research business, and I had never heard the word glutathione before. It was a brand new word. I actually said, gluta what? And would you spell that for me, please? I thought it was a made-up word. And because of my clinical research background, the first thing I did was put on my research hat. And this is a site that's available to everyone. It's called pubmed.gov. And that's the U.S. Library of Medicine research facility where you can access any clinical study that's been done. And it's something that is so valuable, because what I did was I typed in glutathione and I went to town. Now, as of this morning, there are 197,000 citations on PubMed about glutathione. I'm delivering a presentation this afternoon on the connection between bioavailable cysteine that leads to glutathione and autism. And because your cells have to make glutathione to be healthy, this is critical for everyone to know about, because the more your cells make, the more glutathione your cells make, the healthier they are. It protects the cells from oxidative stress, which of course leads to inflammation. And we know how important it is to control inflammation. It's a key to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all of the itises, arthritis, and all the other itises that you're going to deal with in your lifetime. Glutathione protects your cells. And as I said, the more you make, the better. But how do you get glutathione into your cells? Well, the problem is you can't. Glutathione is a very large molecule. So your cells have to actually make glutathione. And the way that it does it is a combination. So cysteine, which is kind of the rate limiting way that your cell, you have to have cysteine or your cells cannot make glutathione. It's really tough to get cysteine from our diets. Glutathione is also made up of glycine and glutamic acid. And we have a lot of that in our diet. So the key is to be able to get cysteine directly into the cell so that your cells can manufacture more. But here's the key. The further we get away from the age of 20, the less glutathione our cells make.
Wow.
And some of us genetically don't make enough, just even from birth. So if you can make your cells make more just by finding a bioavailable cysteine, one that can get into the cells, it works really, really well. Controls oxidative stress, detoxifies the cells, does a marvelous job for helping with mental clarity and focus and for energy. Because you can only make as much energy as your cells can make glutathione. So there's a direct connection there.
So why is that more talked about? I mean, I never actually had heard the word before either until visiting with you. And I went and did the research on it and looked it up and so forth. And I thought, well, why is this not more of a topic? Why we don't hear more about this?
You know, it was really interesting. In medical schools, primarily, our clinicians are not trained on anything other than pharmaceutical intervention or surgical intervention. Those are their two go-tos. I've been in the medical industry, I hate to tell you how long, since 1972. And actually before that in college, I worked in a hospital setting in the dietary department. But I started my career in 1972, and I can tell you I'd never heard the word glutathione until 2009. It's a long time.
Wow.
So why don't doctors know more? I even had a doctor, and Bob, you'll find this amusing. I had a doctor say, "Oh, honey, you're not pronouncing it correctly. You said what? It's glutamate." And I said, "No, doctor, I am pronouncing it correctly. And it's glutathione. That is your master antioxidant that your cells make." So for a doctor to correct me, I knew that it was not mainstream.
Sure.
It takes about 40 years for mainstream medicine to catch up with the new discoveries, except for pharmaceuticals where they get education on a regular basis.
So let's talk then about, LiveMax, about, really the products that, that you found to be effective in your research. I think you had told me, if I remember this correctly, you've done research with athletes. Is that correct? And
Absolutely.
yeah, that you've gotten this proven, positive outcomes. So can you talk about that, please?
Absolutely. In 2023, we did our initial study, initial human study, even though we have 60 independent peer-reviewed studies completed. And I'll give you the website because I think some of your listeners might want to go and take a look. But we have proven science. But we wanted to have a clinical study to measure a couple of specific things. We wanted to take a look first at within a 28-day time frame, 28 days, which is how long it typically takes to change a habit, as you know. But in 28 days, what impact could we have on serum glutathione with just the regular dose of ribosine? What would happen? And it was really quite interesting. For the age group 50 and older, the numbers went up. The serum glutathione, that's what's measured in your blood, went up 64.7%, which is just unheard of in a 28-day time frame, 4 weeks. So in 2024, early 2024, we said, okay, we would like to get a group of athletes to test drive this. So we actually had them taking 3 of the formulas from LiveMax. And what we did was we measured using a Garmin watch. We measured their biomarkers. We wanted to see what was going to happen with specific indicators. So we wanted to take a look at their performance. We wanted to take a look at sleep, all of the things that you can gather on a Garmin device. Now, we were blinded to this because I didn't know who the study participants were. This was done by a complete different organization, a clinical research organization. And once the protocol was developed, I took my hands off and said, okay, you guys go for it and let me know what you find. This was a 30-day study. And I sent you the study results, and they were pretty profound because we saw an improvement in everything. Now, these are top performance athletes, including 3 Olympic athletes.
Oh, wow.
So what you have to know about that, what's really important there is the products are so safe. They're BSCG certified, which means banned substances, which is important to every single truck driver. You do not want to put anything in your body that could cause a blood test to be bad.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to ask you that question because that's always something they have to be concerned about. And also athletes too, and a lot of different testing they do for professional performances, they could be, guilty of that by accident.
Absolutely, and not know it because quite honestly, in the nutrition world, what's on the label is not necessarily in the product, and vice versa. So you could be taking something that is not on the label that you have no clue could cause you to test positive on a blood test. So,
Right.
but it was interesting to have 3 Olympians. Now, all of the participants, and there were 20 of them, all of the participants, top level athletes. Now, you don't usually see much of a change in that level of athlete in 30 days. We didn't expect much, but the reports, what we got back, both subjectively and objectively. So, objectively, we were measuring, parameters with the Garmin watch because we wanted to see exactly what was going on versus perception of what was going on. But what we ended up with, improved sleep, which was huge, better mental clarity and focus, which was significant because any athlete that can have better mental clarity and focus is going to operate at a higher level. And we had an improvement in performance, which was outstanding. So, and they saw faster recovery. So recovery is one of those things that is really tough to measure. And, getting someone's subjective recovery is one thing, saying, yeah, I recovered faster, but actually seeing it measured is something else.
Would you say then was the sleep, I guess, like at top of the food chain, the biggest?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And that's very interesting because, in my space, I'm always talking to drivers, and of course, we know sleep apnea is an issue in
Huge.
professional drivers,
Mhm.
and a lot of population in general, right? But drivers, of course, is dangerous as it can be. But I've always found that I tell them that once it's like getting sober, right? Once I get their mind clear, then they're more open to the next step, which is some type of movement, right? And once you get done, you have more energy, you're more open. And I did a study one time, actually. I took 50 drivers, 25 drivers I put on a sleep program, and then included wellness, and the other 25 they were not on sleep and they were put in wellness. And these were drivers that were had blood pressure, sugar elevations, all that, and then they were also fighting weight issues. That without a doubt, I mean, the 25 drivers who engaged in getting sleep treatment and getting their mind right and good rest, their wellness exceeded higher levels than people that were in the wellness program but not were getting treated for sleep. So
And that's so interesting because when I first was introduced to glutathione, I did not understand that connection. But I will tell you that I decided to test drive it. That's called a clinical trial of one person. I did to test drive it as well. Just say, okay, what would happen if I put this in my body before I spoke to anybody? Because I was not going to expose my clients to something that I hadn't test driven.
exactly.
So within the first week, I slept a full night for the first time in 25 years.
Whoa. And so
First time.
tell us, I mean, and how were you digesting this product or getting this into your body?
Started taking it on a Monday. Saturday morning, I woke up and said, oh my gosh, why is it light out? I had slept for a full night for the first time in 25 years. 6 days. That's pretty
Wow.
shocking. Actually, 5 days of taking the compound, but it was on the 6th day that I woke up. And that's, it's so interesting that you targeted sleep, because that is critical. If someone is not sleeping well, they cannot have good performance.
Right.
And glutathione has a direct impact on sleep apnea and reoxygenation. And it's absolutely critical to make sure that your cells have enough glutathione to create mental clarity and focus, but also to be able to go to sleep at night and get a full restorative sleep. Because you know what it's like getting a poor sleep. I mean,
yeah.
You don't feel great for days.
Well, and this is one of a lot of things that people don't realize when you're a truck driver and you're pulling over. One, it's pretty tough to find a space nowadays out there.
Horrible.
Beside the road, or if you do get into a trucking space, then you're in there with it's traffic 24/7 coming in there, and air horns going off, or there's also trucks coming through there with cattle and horse. I mean, everything going off, right, and parked beside you at all different hours. And so the ability to get a good night's rest is and pretty taxing. And then the other thing too is that while they are have so many hours they have to be down, but you forget when they're out there on the road during that downtime, that 10 hours or whatever it is, they've got either, they got, family to take care of, make communication. They've got to take a shower. They got to eat. They may have to do their laundry. They got business to take care of and all that. And then try to get a little downtime, relaxation for yourself. And then all of a sudden, the night's gone and you're left with a lot of time. If you don't get a good night's sleep, you're up and you're pounding the power drinks, right? And the caffeine and so forth. And then the roller coaster goes on the next day, correct? So,
absolutely.
But first, so tell us how you were digesting this form. Is this in a drink? Is it in a pill? I mean, how do you take in to get into your body?
Different forms. And the one that you and I have talked about extensively is a product called Max ATP, which is a powder that's in a sachet. So it's simple to carry. I mean, I have some with me at all times. It doesn't matter if I'm traveling or just going to the grocery store. I have a sachet with me at all times, because you just simply open it up and put it in about 4 to 5 ounces of water. So it has a little bit more flavor to it. or you can mix it in with your favorite beverage as long as it's not carbonated.
Sure.
And it works extremely well because it goes into your system immediately. It's bioavailable, which means you absorb every penny. And I personally don't like things that are not bioavailable. If I've spent money on something and you know, my body can't utilize it, that's a waste of my money. And so the powder is called Max ATP. There are capsules that I also talk about that is pure ribosine with nothing else. So for those people who need a little extra, if they're over 50, or sometimes even over 45, if they need additional support, I always suggest, adding a couple of Max 1 a day, because that's what we tested with the athletes. So we know how well it works.
Okay, so it was tested in with that, because I wanted you to talk about that as far as like the powder form, because one of the tough things is getting drivers, of course, to stay hydrated and drink more water, because their number one choice of beverage is usually coffee, and and it dehydrates you, and so getting them to, well, Bob, I just got tired of drinking plain water, I mean,
oh yeah.
So this way it gives you a little bit of flavor to it, correct? And
Correct.
you could put that in your bottle of water, and what do you recommend? They drink like one of those portions a day, or can you have 2 or 3 throughout the day, or what's the recommended dosage?
Well, I'm going to tell you that because this is so safe and so effective, and it's actually going to improve health rather than create a problem cellularly, it's safe to take as many as you need. So, for example, yesterday I had an extremely long day, worked until late, and I used three sachets yesterday. So I could stay on my game until 10 o'clock at night because I needed to be sharp.
Yeah.
And, for me, that's probably the most I've ever taken in a day, but it's absolutely safe to take one probably every 4 hours.
And then you were able to go sleep that night, no problem, slept good, you're good to go.
See, that's the beauty of this. It does not keep you up at night like a cup of coffee. I don't clear coffee very well. I'm one of those people that just simply does not handle coffee after like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And there are many people like that. So rather than it being a stimulant, what it is cellular support. So what you're doing is you're stimulating your cells to produce something called ATP, which is cellular energy. And at the same time, just the combination itself, because it's done with very, very safe B vitamins, which is critical. If you don't have safe B vitamins, you can have toxic overload and have neurological issues that occur.
Wow.
There are a few energy drinks out there that, quite honestly, I'm going to caution against. If you look at the B12 and the B6 and they're really, really high, just be very, very careful of them. Our formulas were put together by one of the most renowned medicinal chemists in this country, who just recently passed away at the age of 97. And unfortunately, not of natural causes. He fell, and so it was just so incredibly unfortunate because the man was so healthy. But Dr. Herbert Nagasawa, and he put together these formulas, so we know they're safe.
Right.
We have absolute assurance that they're safe.
So are you at liberty to talk about, the comparison? You told us all this, but, I know you've done some research and study against certain energy drinks out there, and tell us, the downside about the energy drinks that people don't really hear a lot about.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate part. The public as a whole is unaware of the dangers that go along with energy drinks. How the stimulants in most energy drinks overload the system and create severe oxidative stress. Unfortunately, cardiovascular issues can result. Neurological issues can result. High blood sugar can result. And what you and I may or may not have talked about in the past is the fact that when you support glutathione levels, you're actually supporting blood sugar as well. So but those drivers who are struggling to keep their blood sugar under control, simply by increasing glutathione within the cells, improves insulin sensitivity. So I know that there are a lot of energy drinks out there with really, really high levels, not only of caffeine, but taurine and guarana, and then really heavy B vitamins, overdose levels of B vitamins, in my opinion. And I always caution that with my opinion, because I've looked at every popular energy drink on the market. And I'm happy to provide that PowerPoint to you if you would like it,
Yeah.
because it will give people an understanding as to what they're putting in their bodies. And also, Bob, if you know, when I was doing my research, and I delve in, I mean, I did a deep dive for about a month, making sure I knew exactly how many milligrams of caffeine, for example, were in each energy drink. And then I looked at the stacking of stimulants that were in some of these energy drinks, and it was shocking. But sometimes even finding the caffeine content, it's not going to show up on the ingredient label. You might have to turn the can to the side to see how many milligrams of caffeine. How many
And what
people
were you finding out? I'm curious. What's the average?
typically over 200 milligrams.
Right.
And the human body is only able to be really utilize 400 milligrams of caffeine on a daily basis. You think about what happens with energy drinks. You consume them, and 4 hours later, you're going to have that drop when the stimulant is finally out of your system, and you have a crash. What I was stunned to learn in my research was to find out that oftentimes use of energy drinks can create those micro sleeps. That is just the dread fear of every driver, whether you're a truck driver or a car driver.
Right.
It's that horrible feeling that you know that your eyes are closing and you can do nothing about it.
I know it's the most scariest feeling, right? You think I got this, and all of a sudden, and it's like, it's very scary, and you just got to, pull over. But
Oh, absolutely.
unfortunately, a lot of times that doesn't happen soon enough, right?
No.
So, what about, I know a lot of, not a lot, but there's a number of drivers, like I've been recently focusing on interviewing and just putting write-ups on drivers who are really advocate fitness, out there working out on the road, staying active. Did you do any research to compare your product and also about what's going on with, there's a lot of what they call pre-workout drinks, right? Powders and so forth that people that are avid workout folks dump in a bottle of water and drink to get themselves revved up.
Oh, I did evaluate those, and I
Oh,
was horrified almost as much as I was from the energy drinks, because
interesting.
honestly, so many of the pre-workouts have really heavy caffeine content, but they have stimulants in them that you don't even realize are stimulants. And so when you look at the ingredient deck, you should be able to trust that what you're putting in your body is on that ingredient deck. It isn't always. So I
So
always warn people.
I'm sorry, I went before I forgot. When you're talking to these athletes that you did the research on, was that something then that they used instead of a pre-workout type drink to get themselves revved up and go? Did they find that they got the same, outcome, high from, I guess you'd say, from taking your product opposed to down in some kind of, energy powder out there that you mix in your drink?
The results were profound. We had 3 triathletes who were using the formulas, and you know how really challenging on the body being a
Sure.
triathlete is. They did not take any pre-workout other than the max ATP.
Wow.
That was it. And they saw an improvement in everything. All of their markers. One of the triathletes was actually over the age of 50. And he said, I will never be without these formulas. He said, I've never seen anything work like them. And he's a top rated triathlete over the age of 50.
Wow. Awesome.
Incredibly fit.
Well, I'm anxious. Bobbi's been kind enough, like she did. She sent me some product that I'm going to anxiously test. I have a meeting up with a colleague on the road because I'm out traveling all this month until make my way to Texas to the Women Trucking Show, where Bobbi will be there, and we'll meet drivers. Anybody's listening, executives or whoever, drivers. we'll introduce you to Bobbi, and we'll have some product sampling there that we can possibly do and show you folks, and you get a firsthand of it. So, but I'm anxious to get mine so I can talk about it and experience the good feeling myself. So Bobbi, for the listeners, how can they find out more about your company and your product? You have a website, I assume?
I actually asked our design team to put together a website specifically for the trucking industry, so that it spoke directly to issues that those in the driving community face. So it's I'm sorry?
That's great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. So it's LiveMax, LiveMax.com/trucking.
Wow.
And issues are specifically addressed there, and we will have a coupon code that you will be able to attach to your order if you want to try the product. We're going to give you a coupon code so that you get a discount.
You rock, Bobbi. That's very kind of you. Thank you for doing that. So we'll make sure we get that at the end, get the right website there at the end so you can speak, because I can tell you it's very smart marketing for you, because we always like to make sure, we're speaking specifically to the driver-centric content and so forth. And a lot of this information will be good. So, well, Bobbi, this has been very informative. I'm sure I'm excited to get this edited up and get it posted, and I'll do some marketing on this to get out there, and hopefully we can do some great education for drivers and let them know there are other solutions out there, right, than just pounding these power drinks.
Absolutely. And Bobbi, I think when you and I first started talking, I may not have said this to you, but the health and safety of every truck driver that is on the roads today is important to the health and safety of every single person who's on our highways. Every single person. So the better health we achieve for our drivers, the better health and safety for all of us.
All right, my new friend, you're my new hero. Thank you so much, Bobbi. And
thank you, Bob.
What I like to do is we'll have to do a follow-up podcast after we have some experience at Women in Trucking, and have some of the drivers talk about it, and we can share that with some folks too who didn't get to meet you in person there. So that'd be great. So
sounds fantastic. I'll get you that coupon code so you can share it with your audience.
Right on. Thanks, Fred. Talk to you soon. See you soon.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.